Hello and a very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to week 13 of the semester. And we are just 2 weeks away from closing off semester 2, 2021. I very much hope that you all are keeping up with all your syllabus. At the same time, you are busy with finishing up your research project, your lecture-based quizzes, and whatever assessments that you're still pending with. So let's go and quickly go over the things that we have to do over week 13. So this week, you are to attend your Zoom-based lecture class and attempt your Zoom-based lecture quiz. Just your lecture-based quiz, rather. And there is no tutorial for week 13. Do note this, that the lecture notes for week 13 is quite small, and it is basically a summary of most of the things that you've learned over the semester. So therefore, there is no tutorial question or any tutorial class for week 13. So what shall you do during a tutorial class? That's listed in the next point. Students are requested to use week 13 tutorial class to complete all remaining lecture-based quizzes. Now, I was just skimming through it. Most of you are still left to attempt almost all your lecture quizzes. In other words, there are some of you or most of you have not yet attempted a single lecture-based quiz. Now, do not take these very lightly. Okay, you have a total of 10 lecture-based quizzes, carries 1.5% each, total of 15% of marks. That's a lot of mark, by the way. Okay, so please try to ensure that you have finished up with all your lecture-based quizzes. Also note that you are to work on your research-based project, which carries 15% towards your coursework, and it's due next week. So today is the 20th of October, and it is due on the 31st, next week, Sunday, right at the end of the month, the very last hour, the very last minute. Okay, so please ensure that you get your research project done ASAP. Apart from that, if you have a look at your week 13 of the Moodle shell, you just have your week 10 lecture and also your quiz. And then you do not have any tutorial. Now, what will we do in week 14 and week 15? So we have 2 weeks remaining. So next week, what we will do is we will have our lecture class. So in the lecture class, I will start giving you out some revision questions. The tutorial classes for next week and also for week 15, I might ask you to go and take time to complete your assessments, okay? And also your quizzes. So that is something that I will reiterate, or that is something that I will inform you in next week's lecture class. But at the moment, this week, we do not have any lecture class. So without further delays, let's quickly go and open up lecture notes for week 10. It's about 24 slides, not much. So we should be able to finish it in less than an hour. And after that, I will allocate you time, or you may use the time to complete your assessments or work on your other tasks for the course. Now, Chapter 9, Imaging Trends and Technologies. So this is what we're talking about. The trends are basically some form of documents that gives you a good track of the events of the past, the events of the present, and the events that could be forecasted for future. So that is what imaging trends are. Technologies, you know what technology is, any modern day machinery, any modern day computer-based machinery that allows you to perform certain tasks. Now, we have gone over trends and technologies already in lecture 2, lecture 4, a bit in lecture 6, 7, and even the last 2 lectures that we have gone over. So there were some trends and technologies based coverage in all these lecture notes. We'll try to summarize things up and finish up the lecture notes for CIN708. Now, section 9.7, Emerging Trends and Technologies. So the learning outcomes is identify the global trends that will have the greatest impact on future businesses. So we are looking at some of the trends that will have a very humongous or a great amount of impact on businesses in future. Explain why businesses use trends to assess the future. So what is the purpose of trends? Why do businesses use it? And how does it aid in assessing of the future? And identify the technologies that will have the greatest impact on future businesses. So what are some of these technologies? Normally you're dealing with Web 3.0 tools. Reasons to watch trends. Obtaining a broad view of emerging trends and new technologies as they relate to business can help an organization participate and prepare for the future. Okay, organizations that can most effectively grasp the deep currents of technological evolution can use their knowledge to protect themselves against sudden and fatal technological obsolescence. So what these 2 points are explaining is that if you have a look at the emerging trends and the new business technologies and how they relate to businesses and how they can assist organizations, what you're doing is you're basically preparing yourself for future. Now, if you are an organization that is very behind in terms of technology, so you can name that your organization is following you can say that your organization is following a technological obsolescence. Obsolescence means something that is about to go extinct, something that is about to go out of date. Okay, so if you are one of those, so what will happen is you'll have a sudden culture shock, you'll have a sudden technology shock if you get introduced to new technology. For example, if you're driving a very, very old version of a car, and then all of a sudden you're given, let's say about 90s model, early 1990 model, let's say, and then all of a sudden you're handed a 2021 model. So that's a big shock in terms of how the old car is and how the new car is. In fact, you know the basic way of doing things, but you'll still be shocked. Now, another example that I give, especially related to motor vehicles, is this. If someone is not used to driving a hybrid vehicle, for instance, and then you are driving a non-hybrid vehicle and all of a sudden you are asked to swap to a hybrid vehicle, there's a shock for a certain few minutes because you know, the interface is completely different, how it operates, what all elements are where, the basic brake and accelerator would be the same place, steering would be the same place, but how would you put the car into motion and into gear? That would be something of a challenge. So likewise with technology, if you are too old with technology, so you will have a sudden technology shock when you come across something very, very new. Trend analysis. The examination of a trend is to identify its nature, causes, speed of development, and potential impacts. So analysis, basically what you do is you analyze something, you evaluate something, you observe something, you examine something. So in this case, you are examining a trend. Trend monitoring. Now, this should give you a bit of idea. Monitoring, that means you monitor something or you keep a good monitor or watch over it. So trends viewed as particularly important in a specific community, industry, or sector are carefully monitored, watched, and reported to key decision makers. So like I mentioned here, so you are keeping a good watch, a good monitoring, you're keeping a good view on all the trends that are taking place in a specific industry, and these trends are then reported to the strategic decision makers of the organization. Trend projection. When numerical data are available, a trend can be plotted to display changes through time and into future. Projection, another word for projection would be forecasting, or you're trying to predict something. That's projection. So based on the previous and the current data, you may analyze things, you may monitor things, and then you will project something for future. You may say, okay, so let's say something like this. You travel to Suva and then you travel back once. Okay, so then another week you would travel to Suva and then come back. So what you'll do is, in your very first trip, you have taken the time it has taken for you to reach to Suva and the time it has taken you to travel back on the same route. Let's say you've noticed the time. The next time that you went, you also noted the time of going to Suva and then coming back. So what happens in that case is that sometimes the time may vary. Why? Traffic probably. Probably let's say there was an accident on the way, or probably you stopped over, or probably you have to fill up your car. So there was a traffic at the service station and so forth. Okay, so when you have 2 or 3 trips already noted down with the specific times, what you can do is you can find the average of it, and then you can tell a friend of yours who is supposed to go Suba next week. You'll say, okay, to go to Suba, it will take you an average of this much time. And to come back, it might also take you an average of this much time. So remember, the distance remains the same, but the time may vary. Why it may vary? Because of certain factors. So likewise, when there are trends, something similar is done with the trend projection as well. So you have some details and data of the past. You have some details and data of the current events. Okay, you'll note it down. You'll analyze them, you'll summarize them, you evaluate it, and then you try to come up with a projection. Computer simulation. Complex systems that can be modeled by the means of mathematical equations and different scenarios can be run against the model to determine what-if analysis. Now, computer simulation is just like you are trying to have a virtual version of a reality. In other words, simulation is not the real thing, but it is computer generated to the use of mathematical and algorithmic equations. In other words, let's say you have a pilot simulator. So a pilot simulator may have a screen in front of you, okay, and it will view and you'll be able to view the geographical locations, the clouds and everything, a runway and also forth, and all those stuffs and so forth. However, you will not be actually flying a plane, but in fact, you would be seated in a small room with a simulator, and you will perform the same set of tasks that will be required to fly an actual plane. Now, this is similar what the Aviation Academy of Fiji Airways has done in Namaka, just opposite, I think, Max Value. Okay, so they have something similar, a flight simulator. Moreover, you have artificial intelligence, whereby you can simulate yourself to be in a specific environment from the computer system while you're at your normal homes. For instance, if you have a VR eyewear, so if you wear that, so what you'll notice is that the environment changes in front of you. You'll be on top of a mountain, you'll be in a jungle, you'll be on space and so forth. And then you can play games or do certain tasks with the devices available. Those examples of computer simulation. Historical analysis. This is simple. Historical comes from the word history. Analysis comes from the word evaluating or analyzing something. So you are analyzing history. Historical events are studied to anticipate the outcomes of current development. Now, the reasons to study trends. So there are 8 reasons given. We will go over those 8 points and see the top reasons and the explanation for those. Generate ideas and identify opportunities. Find new ideas and innovations by studying trends and analyzing publications. So if you are studying trends, what you can do is by looking at the previous tracks, by looking at the previous reports, you can analyze, summarize, you can find problems, you can find solutions, and then come up with ideas and opportunities. Identify early warning signals. Scan the environment for potential threats and risks. So you can protect yourselves from any potential risks by going through previous data. Gain confidence. A solid foundation of awareness about trends can provide an organization with the confidence to take risks. For instance, if you have gone through a publication or if you have read a research paper, let's say plenty of research papers, and you feel that the researcher has done justice to the work and has carried out his survey, his validation, his evaluations very, very well. And you feel that if you would pick up some of the ideas and points from that particular research paper and actually implement it in your business, you're confident. Why? Because you've seen it works on research environment. The person has done that physically and validated the idea. So you are confident that it will work. Now, sometimes all you need is a bit of confidence, a bit of push to get new ideas on board. Okay, you definitely in business terms, you might need to take certain form of risks, but if you're taking risks with confidence, There's a likely chance of more success than failure. Beat the competition. Seeing what is coming before others can give an organization the lead time it requires to establish a foothold in the new market. So you can get competitive advantage if you would try to study the trends. Understand a trend. Analyzing the details within a trend can help separate truly significant developments from repeatedly appearing and disappearing fads. So what happens is, if you are able to carefully understand the trend, you can make a lot of important decision making. Okay, now you must remember, and we have gone over this many times, if you're operating an organization, if you are, let's say, the CEO of an organization, the director or manager in a specific department, you want your department or organization to grow. You do not want it to stay at a similar spot for, let's say, almost about 10 years. So when you study trend and then you analyze trends, and if you understand them properly, there's a chances of much more significant developments and growths. Balance strategic goals. We've talked about this. Thinking about the future is an antidote to a profit now, worry later mentality that can lead to trouble in the long term. Okay, so if you are not someone who would just be worried about strategic goals, or if you work for an organization which does not worry about strategic goals, so in long run it may be a bit difficult. Now this is what happens. Sometimes you might see a new business coming in. Okay, so that new business probably would want to make a lot of profit right at the very beginning. Okay, and let's say he or she sells very unique products, and it does work for a year or so. And then after about 1 or 2 years, as more businesses notice that you are selling the product and you're making a big amount of sales, so other businesses also start getting a similar product. Now what happens? Since your price is a bit higher than the competitors, your business fails. Okay, so in long run, always ensure when you are selling products, analyze trends to keep a good track of the competitors. And moreover, not only sell unique products, but also try to look for other unique products. There's a dialogue that someone recently told me: always try to have backups, or have backups of backups. I think he saw it in a movie and mentioned it to me. So I'm just saying it out to you. Have backups for backups. So trends is something that will allow you to do so. Understand the future of specific industries. Organizations must understand everything inside and outside the industry. Okay, so when you're looking at trends, if you're working, let's say, in a livestock industry, so if you are looking at the trends, probably you would be someone who would, study other types of organizations in the similar industry, and then you will try to improvise the same in the business. For instance, if you own a poultry farm, let's say, okay, I'm just giving an example. So in the poultry farm, probably they would sell chicken, meat birds, okay, and then you'll see that there's a big demand for eggs. So probably you'd want to have some layer beds in your farm. So the layer beds, basically they lay eggs. So after that, you notice that the demand for duck also comes in. So you want to go and invest in duck as well. And then all of a sudden you see there's a hybrid form of chicken and all those stuffs and duck. So you also want to invest in that and see whether it works, because the variety of products which you have, the more different types of customers, they actually come to you. So you would be, if you are someone who likes to study trends, it will help you to understand the future of a specific industry and prepare for the future. Any organization that wants to compete in his or in this hyper-changing world needs to make every effort to forecast the future. Okay, probably the idea of have backup for backups would work in here. Okay, so if you are someone who is doing good at the moment and you feel that you'll continuously do good, that's an illusion. Okay, it takes probably a few days or few hours to ruin your business. It takes a few years probably to get your business to a state of failure from success. So what you need to ensure is you need to study trends every now and then to help yourself be better prepared for the future. Now, trends shaping our future. The following trends have the potential to change our world, our future, and our lives. World's population will double in the next 40 years. Okay, so these are some of the trends that are coming in. How do you say 30 years? Now, research proves it. The population has increased a lot over the last 20 to 30 years. Okay. So in this case, what happens is by studying the trend, so this is what it is saying, that the world's population will double up. Anyone knows what's the population of the world at the moment? Find out what is the population. It's in billions. Okay, but what exact number? Find it out. People in developed countries are living longer. Why do you think they would be living longer? Better health facilities, access to better food, access to better living, access to much more hygienic and sanitized environments. Okay, growth in information industries is creating knowledge dependent global society. So knowledge dependent, that means everyone is dependent on each other, or they rely heavily on each other for the growth of information. Okay, now that is very true. It's also happening now. People are knowledge dependent. They rely on one another. For instance, you study at FNU, so you are knowledge dependent. Your knowledge, you basically rely your knowledge from Fiji National University. Moreover, once you go into a organization to start your work, you would rely on an experienced person for some form of knowledge. Over time, okay, once you know everything in the organization, you would think, okay, it would be good for me to get a postgrad done. So you will go and again be knowledge dependent. So likewise, industries also, they are knowledge dependent. That means they rely on information from each other. They rely on knowledge from each other so that they could grow. The global economy is becoming more integrated. That means the world is becoming, they are more and more becoming conjunction or conjoined with one another. How? Internet technologies, networking, globalization, and so forth. The economy and society are dominated by technology. Look around. Yes, we are. At the moment, we are and we will be. This is how the future is going to be. Now, how many of you can stay away from your phones? How many of you can stay away from televisions? How many of you can stay away from motor vehicles? How many of you can stay away from computers? How many of you can stay away from your watch? These are all technology, by the way, people. Okay, so the society and the economy are dominated by technology. Pace of technological innovation is increasing. Now, this is what it was said 15, 20 years back, and this is what it is, that the pace of technology is very fast. Okay, it is way more faster than we expect. Time is becoming one of the most precious commodities. Like they say, time and tide waits for no man. Okay, I don't know about you, but how many times I would look at the watch during a day, I feel the day has just flown away. Okay, or probably I would wish there were a few more hours in my day, probably daylight time, whereby I could do some work. Okay, or probably a few more hours at work, whereby I could get more work done. Okay, so time is one of the most precious commodity, and time and tide waits for no man. Somebody also said time is money. Okay, so the more time that you have, the more money you can make. But isn't life more than money? Okay, so time is something that is of a precious commodity. The world's population will double over the next 40 years. So these are the trends, and according to that, that's why it said the population will double in 40 years. We'll omit this. Okay, now potential business impact. If the population doubles up in the next 40 years, by the way, we are in that 40th year. Okay, the book was published somewhere around in late 2010. So we have already crossed the 10 years. Now imagine that when I was in high school, probably a few years back, more than a decade, probably. Yeah, more than a decade. Okay, when I was in high school, the population that time was close to about 500,000 something. Now it's about 800,000. So see, even the population in Fiji has almost doubled up. All right. So what will be some of the potential impacts? Global agriculture will be required to supply as much food as has been produced during all of human history to meet needs over the next 40 years. Agriculture is important. Why? No agriculture, no food to eat. You can't eat canned food all the time, can you? The more canned items, the more packaged food, the more junk food that we eat, the more junk we get inside our body, which causes a lot of issues with our immune system, with our digestive system, with our central processing system, our brains, and eventually we get knocked down if it isn't working well. Okay, so you need access to not only agriculture but good agriculture. That means more likely food that has very little chemical in it. Okay, food that probably isn't harmful for you. Nowadays we have a lot of vegetables, even they are basically planted in chemicals. They call it as hydroponics. Okay, and there's aquaponics as well. Okay, now aquaponics, hydroponics is like you have it in water mixed with chemical. Aquaponics, you have it with fish waste and also with chemicals. Okay, now you get the items very easily. Okay, the cost of actually implementing a hydroponics or a aquaponic system is a bit expensive compared to plowing your land, but over time it generates more revenue. Now if you start thinking about revenue, okay, what happens is we're causing a lot of harm to our body, because these chemicals, they end up killing up our bodily cells, which overall leads to a lot of diseases and a lot of problems. So that's why I'm saying not only you need access to agriculture, but good agriculture. Okay, whereby you have meals which has very little chemicals, which has very little form of elements that may damage your body. Now developed nations will find that retirees will have to remain on the job to remain competitive. Now, this is what happens generally in developed nations. If you look at some of the nations, for instance, United States of America, if you look at Australia, if you look at not New Zealand, New Zealand hasn't reached there yet. If you look at Canada, if you look at China, Japan, Korea, even India, the population is big and the job market is very competitive. Okay, now what happens when you have a lot of competition? Generally the prices go down. Now if you go around looking at some of the items that are sold in countries like Australia, Australia, States, Canada, China, Japan, India, the items are cheap. Why? Because there's so much competition. There's so much competition that people generally have to struggle for work. People generally go around selling items or finding means of producing the items at much more lower cost or with better quality and sell at lower prices. For instance, if you look at EFL, a monopoly here in Fiji, if another company comes in, okay, and they go neck to neck with EFL, and let's say after 2 or 3 years, another 3 or 4 company comes in, total of 6 companies, all competing with each other. What happens to electricity bill? Instead of paying 34 cents, I think, yeah, 34 cents per unit, you might end up paying 20 cents per unit. It's cheaper. Okay, it will get cheaper. Now, look at the rates of Vodafone and Digicel. Ever since Digicel, Vodafone came into the market. No, Vodafone was already in the market, pardon me. Ever since Digicel came into the market, what happened is you must have noticed the price of calling, the price of internet, the price of mobile phones has drastically gone down. Competition. Okay, now developed nations will begin to increase immigration limits. Why increase immigration limits? So that their local people would get more jobs. Also, if you notice that another migration program that you have for Australia, for New Zealand, for Canada, for America, okay, these countries, we also have for Europe-based countries as well. So they only try to give jobs in those areas which gives less income to their local people. One, moreover, it is, or it may be some of those jobs that the local people may not want to engage themselves in. So let's say if I'm supposed to go to America, I might go and work in a accounting firm, for example. So the accounting firm may pay me $20 per hour, 20 USD. Now for me, that may be a lot of money because $20 USD is close to about $45 Fijian at the moment. Okay, but for someone who's already working in an accounting firm in US, okay, so their minimum salary of $20, they wouldn't want that. They would be looking at somewhere about $50 to $60 per hour, or probably $30 per hour, something like that. Okay, so this is the thing. So over time, what will happen is developed nations will increase immigration limits. So at the moment, let's say if they're allowing 100 people, they might just allow 20 per year. By the way, New Zealand has already started doing this after COVID. So they do not want normally they had a DB lottery system, some lottery system whereby randomly the machine would pick up some numbers, and you may get migrated to New Zealand. Okay, so in that case, they have previously it used to be 100 people. Now they've I think the one that is coming up in 2022, I've just read it recently somewhere, they've reduced to about 10 to 20 people only. Okay, because there is a big tussle in the market for employment in New Zealand, especially after the effects of COVID-19. People in developed countries are living longer. Okay, on average, each generation in the United States lives 3 years longer than the previous. An 80-year-old in 1950 could expect to live 6.5 years longer today. Why? Better medical facilities. Okay, now I don't know if you've noticed this or not. Probably I'm going out of the topic, but just imagine this. All the junk meals, all the junk food that is sold in the majority of our supermarkets, there was a time Fiji didn't have all those things. So just because we didn't have all those things, what happened was our mortality rate was quite higher. In other words, people were living longer. We had less diseases. We had more of a proactive lifestyle. But because of globalization and things get easier, we have junk food which are more cheaper in the supermarkets, which are more cheaper in any of the outlets compared to healthy stuff. In fact, our local food, the local healthy food, is way more expensive than the imported ones. And countries like developed countries, they are moving away from all those things. So what you notice is that countries like Australia, countries like America, even New Zealand as well, most of these developed countries, they have a rating to what type of item can enter their country according to their health standards. Now, over here in Fiji, we do not have something as such. So in this case, you will see kids would prefer to gobble down junk food rather than healthy meals. We have more cases of diabetes in the entire world. We have more cases of obesity. We have more cases of mental and health illness compared to most of the countries in the world. Why? As kids are small, they would take in more junk food. People would like more of a relaxed lifestyle than to actually be proactive. Now just imagine, what do you do most of the time when you're at home? Some of you may be doing gardening. Some of you may be exercising. Some of you do not exercise at all. Some of you would prefer to switch on the air condition, stay in bed, watch movies. You would say, okay, this is my way of relaxing. Now exercise also gives a lot of relaxing. In fact, exercising releases a chemical in our body called endorphins. So what endorphins does, it repairs the stress, or it gets rid of the stress hormones in our body. Okay, so try to think, how would you go and lead your lifestyle? Remember, technology is good. Okay, in fact, if you feel that technology is one of these factors which is destroying your mental health, for instance, you may prefer to sit down in front of a TV and play a PlayStation all day long, and you feel, okay, it's technology. But remember, there are other technologies that helps you improve your lifestyle as well. There are technologies, for example, mobile phones have planners. There are technologies such as something that could measure your blood pressure, diabetes. There are machinery which may allow you to exercise if you do not have space. There are machinery which allows you to go and do constructive work. Okay, so this is all upon us, how we go and align our lifestyles to. So if you're one of those who are living a malnutrition lifestyle, realign, people. It's not too late yet. Now, potential business impact. Global demand for elderly products and services grow quickly in the coming decades. The cost of healthcare is destined to skyrocket. Pharmaceutical companies will be pushed for advances in geriatric medicine. Now, what happens is if people will live longer, okay, that means there will be more people who would be in 70s, 80s, and 90s. So what will happen is the demand for elderly products and services will increase. The cost of healthcare will also increase because you would need more people and more facilities, more of medicine to take care of these elderly people. Now, there's a word called as pharmaceutical companies will be pushed for advances in geriatric medicine. Now, geriatric medicine are all those type of medicines that are used on elderly people. Okay, so pharmacies would be asked to produce more of these type of medicines. The growth in information industry is creating a knowledge-dependent global society. Now, 90% of American management personnel are knowledge workers. In other words, many people in America, it says 90% is the exact figure. They are knowledge workers. Knowledge workers are those people who work with information. For example, if you are someone who would be an analyst, if you are someone who would do research work, you come under knowledge workers. If you are someone who is fixing up accounts for a department, for accounts of bookkeeping for a particular organization, you're also a knowledge worker. A typical large organization in 2020 will have fewer than half the management levels of its counterparts in 1990 and about 1/3 the number of managers. So what will happen is people will, the management levels will be reduced. Why? Because you have introduction of management information systems, ERPs, SCMs, CRMs. So these would go and feed in and look after the information that normally people would have been doing in the early 1990s. Potential business impact. Okay, the growth in information industries is creating a knowledge-dependent global society. Top managers must be computer literate to retain their job and achieve success. Knowledge workers are generally higher paid and their proliferation is increasing overall prosperity. Now, this is also true for Fiji. We have more demand for knowledge workers here in the country at the moment. Okay, more of analysts, more of consultants, more of project officers, more of people in white collar jobs. Entry level and unskilled positions are requiring a growing level of education. This is also common here as well. Okay, you need to meet the MQR, and these most of the MQRs, they are basically probably these days bachelor's degree, postgrad, master's, PhD, so forth. Information now flows from front office workers to higher management for analysis. Now, previously it used to go from front office to the middle level and then to the higher management. What happens since with the integration of management information systems and ERPs, the higher level management can also go and directly view the information of low level or the ground level workers. Downsizing, restructuring, reorganization, outsourcing, and layoffs will continue. Why? Because of technology. Now, global economy is becoming more integrated. Integrated means becoming conjoined or combining. Potential business impact. Demand for personnel in distant countries will increase the need of foreign language training and employee incentives suited to other cultures. Okay, yep. In this case, what we can say is this, just because of globalization, okay, we have a lot of people traveling from one destination to the other. For example, I think just before COVID, we had a large market of Asian people coming over here in Fiji, and probably outlets like Jack's Handicraft, outlets like Top O's, and all these organizations, they would have people who would speak their language. Okay, so the demand for foreign language also increases. E-business and the internet will reduce cost of doing business. How many businesses are there which do not have a brick and mortar system, a normal physical shop? In fact, there are a lot of businesses who basically don't have a building, a structure. All they do is operate online. For instance, Airbnb, okay, the owner of the website does not own any property, but what he does, he owns a website system whereby people go and register their properties on the system. Airbnb would go and promote it, Okay, and if a tourist would come or a person would come and book your property for a day or two, so Airbnb would take certain number of commission, 10% to 15% is the rate. Okay, so they earn a lot. So if, for instance, if somebody is earning up, somebody is earning close to about $1,000 from renting out the property in Airbnb, so what happens? The owners, they earn about $150. Now that's just one property. Now Airbnb has more than about 1 million properties on their system. That's a lot of money, people. The internet will allow small companies to compete with worldwide giants with relatively little investment. True. Now, you would see so many people would actually go and sell items on Facebook. Here in Fiji, there's a big demand for pastries, okay, and the big marketing and strategic marketing for pastry making and selling pastry items on social media, especially here in Fiji. Now, what they're doing is, with those little businesses or probably individuals who sell these items, they compete neck to neck with the big companies. Why? Because probably they would be cheaper. Okay, one. Secondly, they would go and deliver to homes. There's another added advantage. And thirdly, what happens is sometimes they may actually taste better than the biggies of these kind of companies. Okay, so yes, small businesses are able to compete neck to neck with big companies. The economy and society are dominated by technology. Computers are becoming a part of our environment, a part of our lives, a part of our surrounding. Artificial intelligence and expert systems will help most companies and government agencies assimilate data and solve problems beyond the range of today's computers. Assimilate means will integrate. Okay, assimilate, this is what it means. It integrates things, it combines things. So artificial intelligence and expert systems is part of artificial intelligence. So this is also a area of the computer science. So it will allow you to do things which are beyond the thinking of a normal computer. Okay, personal robots will also appear in the home. I don't know if you have heard about this or not, but Roop's Big Bear, they actually sell a robot-based vacuum cleaner. Okay, so what you can do is you can set some form of commands, and using those commands, it would go and clean your entire house. How cool is that? Okay, very cool. So that's a personal robot, but Roop's doesn't sell a personal robot. It's like a vacuum robot. Okay, so that's what it's called, vacuum robo. So using that, you can allocate commands. For example, you have 4 rooms: bedroom 1, bedroom 2, bedroom 3, bedroom 4. You can train your robot in such a way whereby if you say go and clean bedroom 2, it can go and clean the bedroom 2 rather, and clean the spots that you have trained it to and perform the work for you. Very cool. New technologies provide dozens of new opportunities to create businesses and jobs. Automation will continue to decrease the cost of products and services, making it possible to reduce prices while improving profits. Demand for scientists, engineers, and technicians will continue to grow. So new technologies will provide dozens of jobs and businesses. Okay, how? Look at your mobile phones. You can sell items to the use of mobile phones and with social media. That's technology. Social media, mobile phones, both. Okay, moreover, you have technology-based shops whereby you sell technological items itself. So that also creates new opportunities. Now, with technologies come automation. When you introduce a technology, let's say an MIS system in your organization, what you're doing is you're providing an automation phase whereby you can analyze information and record information very, very quickly and with much ease. With that, what will happen is the overall cost of your production decreases. Why? Probably instead of having 10 people, you might need 1 or 2. Instead of printing a lot of paper-based documents, you may not need to print any. So these reduce costs, and gradually it will lead to improving profits. And finally, demand for scientists, engineers, and technicians will grow. Now, scientists, engineers does not necessarily mean like an aircraft engineer or like a scientist who would deal with health items, who would go and look at health facilities, or a human body or human anatomy based scientists. Scientists can be something like information scientists. You have data scientists. You have information engineers. you have data engineers. So these people are also in demand. In fact, some of them may be more in demand than aircraft engineers, especially in the face of COVID-19. Okay, so what happens is, if you have a person who does a lot of research work doesn't mean you go on Google, type down something, and then you do research. No, research work basically means you get hold of a specific area of a field, let's say mobile computing or mobile learning applications. You go and find out all the trends, all the possibilities with mobile computing and mobile learning, and then you look at some gaps and you try to fill in those gaps by doing some work or introducing new ideas. So when you do research, what you're doing is basically you are coming up with something new. This is what people who do PhDs, this is what they're asked to do. They are asked to go and create or do something new. So data scientists and information engineers, they do some of these work. Now, people as such, they are high in demand. If you look at in universities, we have assistant professors, we have lecturers, even some lecturers, we have professors, you have associate professors who will also work as information engineers or data scientists or high level researchers. So these people, they improve the knowledge capacity in the economy or in the world. Okay, and such people are well recognized within their communities. Now, if you want to know, okay, how many people are like data scientists or high-level engineers here in FNU, go to scholar.google.com or just type down Google Scholar, search bar, type down Fiji National University, and you will get a big track of how many people are there who are high-level researchers in Fiji National University. You'll be surprised if you look at some of the names. Okay, these may be your common lecturers who are teaching you on a regular basis, but they do a lot of work apart from teaching. Okay, so yes, so there's a big demand for these kind of work, and gradually it will increase. Pace of technological innovation is increasing. Medical knowledge is doubling every 8 years. And how better can we know of this by considering the effects of COVID-19? So medical knowledge is in demand. 50% of what students learn in their freshman year of college is obsolete, revised, or taken for granted by their senior year. Okay, I would totally agree with this. Whatever you learn in your freshman year, it's totally obsolete. That means it would go and become like irrelevant. Why? Because technology changes, especially if you're doing a studies in computer science and information technology. So if you are one of the students who would be on your third year, whatever you've learned in your first year, most of the things have faded away. However, the framework, the methodology remains the same. Okay, but they may be revised or taken for granted by the senior year. Now, for instance, you may think, what type of knowledge would I derive from CIN708? Now, CIN708, if you may have been taking this course lightly, it is of a lot of value, especially if you go into a managerial level. Okay, so management information system, if you become one of those people who is supposed to decide what type of information system to implement in the organization, CIN708 plays a big role. In fact, if you are someone who would be doing postgrad or masters in information systems, CIN708 plays a very big role. In fact, here at the university, we have information analysis, we have project analysis, we have information system analysis, who would go and do some level of work what you have learned in CIN708. So basically, organizations that deal with a lot of information, CIN708 plays a very big role. All of today's technical knowledge will represent only 1% of the knowledge that will be available in 2050. Now, potential business impact: shortened time to market for products and services, tighter competition based on new technologies. Now, shortened time to market for products and services, what does that mean? What it simply means is that you have very little time for a particular product to be available in the market. Okay, very short time. So if you are thinking, okay, I will increase the price and eventually I'll lower the price, or I will have lower price and eventually I'll increase the price. Now you may have to think faster, especially in a growing economy in a growing technological environment. Eventually what will happen is you'll run out of time. And this is what happens in countries. Now, if you've noticed, sometimes you say, oh, products are so cheap in Australia and New Zealand. Why? Probably ladies in the class, you might say, oh, the shoes are so cheap. You'll get it for about 3 or 5 USD. Over here it's about 30 or 40 dollars. Why? Because there are a lot of competition. Okay, there are a lot of competition, and eventually what happens is that just because of the competition, the prices go at a very little profit margin rate, but in fact they make more profit. What businesses do here in Fiji. So if in Fiji, if a person would sell it for 30 to 40 dollars, they would sell close to about, in 6 months, let's say 50 pieces. In countries like Australia and New Zealand, they will make about $2 or $3 profit per an item, but they will sell thousands of those. So eventually, if you compare, if a company here in Fiji makes about a profit of $20, let's say, per an item, sells 100 pieces, that's about $2,000. However, in a company based in Australia and New Zealand, they would sell probably they'll make a profit, let's say about $2 or $3, but they sell, let's say, 5,000 pieces. So their profit margin rate is $10,000. Now, not only that, they generate more income. They also allow the organization to rotate money way more faster, so that they can invest in other types of products and services. So the more types of products and services, more customers come in, more revenue, more profit. Now, this is why many of the times most of the businesses do not succeed, because people have not reached that heightened knowledge in terms of that they can sell items at a lower price, yet they can make more profit. Now, look at some of the vegetable vendors in the supermarket, sorry, in the municipal market rather. They will sell items for, let's say, $5. Let's say bananas, okay? They would sell one bunch of bananas for $5. Now, nowadays, people do not want to spend $5 on bananas. I'm just saying for an example, okay? So if they would sell for $5, so they will have 2 or 3 customers per day. And the rest of the bananas might go bad, or they might take it home and eat on their own, make cakes, or put it in the deep freeze, make smoothies and so forth. What if they would reduce the price, let's say $3, becomes more affordable for people to buy, one, okay? Or what if they half it up and sell it for $2 each, okay? So makes $4, still $1 short. However, instead of selling 3 bunches per day, they might go around selling about 10. That makes more revenue for them. Okay, so this is sort of knowledge where many people run short of. And as we are learning all these things over time, we should be the ones who would be driving the knowledge to such people. Okay, sometimes if you have a market vendor whom you know, who is a family, or let's say if you're one of those, this is a time for you to learn. Okay, because as the demand for things will grow up, more and more suppliers will come in. More suppliers will come in, you will be thrown off guard in this competition stage. Okay, so it's best for all of us to share knowledge, impart knowledge, that all of us, we get the best out of the economy. Now, how does a vendor, they get the best? They get more revenue. You get the product, more people buy. So when more people buy at a lower cost, okay, people will gradually keep on coming to you to know and buy things from you. Okay, and also what you're not, if you are that particular market vendor, not only you're feeding your family, you're feeding the family of those who buy the items from you, and you're also feeding the families who supply the items to you as well. Okay, builds good relationship between the supplier. Probably the supplier would see, okay, this guy is selling or is buying more stuff from me, I might give them a bit of discount. Or probably the vendor might ask them, okay, previously used to buy 5 bunches of banana, used to give it to me for $20 to $25 per the entire big bunch. How about now I'm buying about 15 or 20, you give it to me for $15. And the guy would think about it, yes, he'll buy a lot more if I make it a bit more cheaper. So let's make it $15. Building good relationship. Okay, that's how it works. Now, tighter competition based on new technologies. So likewise, the same thing with technology as well. When you have more competition in terms of technology, what you can do is you have to ensure that you're staying ahead of the competition in such tactics, which I've just mentioned right now. And I'm not saying this just over the head. Okay, I've done a bit of research on these things. Okay, so gradually this is how people can improvise and do better business over time. Time is becoming one of the world's most precious commodities. US workers spend 10% more time on the job than they did a decade ago. Okay, even we do. I do spend more time on my job than the time that I even get at home. Now, let's analyze things. What time do you go to work? Okay, I'm at work at 7. I leave work at 4:30 to 5. Okay, so that's about, let's count how many hours is that. So 7 to 7 is 12 minus 2, that makes it 10 hours. So 10 hours. So at home I would also work on my studies and probably some research work for another about 2 or 3 hours. So that's about 12 to 13 hours. Yeah, close to about 13 to 14 hours per day on work. I have 24 hours in a day. So out of those 24, I've already used, let's say, 14 hours. So once I've used 14 hours, I'm remaining with 10, 7 hours for sleep, 3 hours probably for family time, home time. Okay, so this is how mostly things go on. And if you are someone who are working for a big organization, you may spending more hours. If you're thinking people in overseas countries, they are paid more. Yes, they are paid more, but eventually the input of their time is more as well. They put in more effort. There's very little time to relax. So the time that they relax is when they are out on holidays. You can also even do that here in Fiji, provided you work hard, you attain a good level of qualification, and you get used to how the economy works in a better way. European executives and non-unionized workers face the same trend. This high-pressure environment is increasing the need for any product or service that saves time or simplifies life. Okay, so as trends pick up, so this is how it will be. More people will spend time on their job. Okay, executives and non-unionized workers, they will also do the same. Okay, and the working environment would be highly pressured. Why? Because if you cannot work in a high pressure environment, somebody else may end up replacing you. Okay, companies must take an active role in helping the employees balance their work and lives. Stress-related problems affecting employee morale and wellness will continue to grow. Okay, use of internet will continue to grow as the time to perform activities such as shopping at a mall evaporates. The last point. Okay, now why do you think shopping at the mall would evaporate? That means it will become less. Why? Online shopping. Okay, nowadays if you shop more than for about $200 or so at max value, they'll drop the item at your home for free. Okay, if you live within the 5-kilometer range. Now isn't that basically evaporates the time you spend at a shopping supermarket or at a mall? Okay, now what is the advantage of you going to the mall? Okay, it relaxes your mind. 1, 2, you have more options when you actually go and look around. And the advantage, it is more on the businesses. Why? Because if you're in the mall, you intentionally went to buy in product A, B, C, but you also go and buy D, E, F as well. Okay, so this is a plus point for organizations who are in a brick and mortar system. However, with the use of the internet, it will eventually decline. And internet-based businesses will grow more. So how would you allow your internet business to grow more? Is all depends on how much marketable your business is on the web. The following technologies have the potential to change our life, our future, and our lives. The digital mesh. Digital mesh basically includes the device mesh, ambient user experience, and 3D printing materials. Now, the device mesh is virtual reality or augmented reality. We have talked about this. It's just like simulation, something environment that is built using computer-based algorithms and mathematical equations. Ambient user experience, that means you have a much more digital user experience compared to what you may be doing now. For instance, digital user experience is what you buy things on the web. Okay. Now, if you have booked hotel rooms, or if you booked hotels via websites and you have never been to that particular hotel, now you have an ambient experience. Okay, because you have watched the images, you have read the reviews on the websites. For hotels, it's TripAdvisor. You have read about all these things, and then you have gone around booking the particular hotel. So that's a ambient digital experience. Now, 3D printing materials, biological 3D printing. Now, this may be an also example of what you might see on the web. And with the use of technologies, most of the things are coming in 3D. Now, if you are, for example, let's say you've taken a photograph, you printed it, that's 2D. Okay, X and Y axis on a Cartesian plane. 3D, you have X, Y, Z axis on a Cartesian plane. That means something that you're seeing. For example, if you're seeing a person coming in, so once if you're seeing that person without being a photograph taken, you're seeing them, you're seeing them in reality, you are seeing something in 3D. Not only you're able to see the person, you're able to see the shadows, you're able to see the surroundings. So that is 3D. Now, overall, in future, our technology will allow us to do a lot more biological 3D printing. If you're confused on this, do some research on the web. Technology shaping our future, smart machines, okay, machines that will be smart. Your mobile phones are smartphones, okay. You have laptops which are smart. For instance, your laptops can adjust to the bright light automatically. How does it do that? There's a sensor in your laptops, provided your laptop has the sensor. Moreover, if your laptops are coming to a low battery, so smartly what it does, it dims up the light so that it is able to reserve power. We call that into an economy mode. Your mobile phone does the same. Okay, so information of everything, advanced machine learning, autonomous agents and things. So autonomous agents, autonomous comes from the word, someone basically comes from the word whereby someone is virtually present. Okay, for instance, you may know someone, okay, but you do not know that person by face, you only know by the name or probably by the voice. So that is virtually present. So autonomous agents basically resides in the field of virtual reality. So virtual assistants and autonomous agents. The new IT reality, adaptive security architecture, advanced system architecture, autonomic computing. Okay, so those are some of the things that may come in future in relation to information technology. And that finishes our lecture slides, the very last set of lecture slide. Now I must thank you over time that all of you had given in for the successful completion of all the lecture notes you have used in your time. Now, there were some of you who had never attended any of the classes, the the Zoom-based classes, but you did go around watching the tutorial and lecture-based videos. For that, I'm also thankful for taking out your time. Now, the next 2 weeks is very crucial. Why? Because this week and next week, I would say try to work as much as on your research project and try to get your projects done, and please try to release some quality work. Now, what I've noticed is that in your critique writing, most of you had not followed the layout that I had given you. Please follow the layout. If you do not follow the layout or the format, what happens is basically I do not know where to go and pick up information from, and also I do not know at which point you had given your introduction, which point you have given in your let's say thesis statement, which point you've given in your conclusion. So that becomes very difficult for me to pick out, because generally it's just a brief or just a few sets of paragraphs. So that does not give me an indication of what represents what, because my marking criteria will be based on the format that I would give you. Okay. Also, another reminder, your lecture-based quizzes, please try to get them done. Probably the lecture-based quizzes, this is something that you can focus in week 15. So this is week 13, week 14, Sunday, your research project is due. Week 15, you can work on all your lecture-based quizzes. It's pretty simple. You just have to refer to your lecture notes and then try to get your lecture-based quiz done. Now, for those of you who have done nothing so far, there are a few of you, about 6 to 7 of you have not attempted even a single lecture-based quiz. This is where you'll have problems. Why? Because we have finished all the lecture notes, and now if you try to go back to lecture 1 and try to recapture everything and then get your lecture-based quiz done, this is where you will have to invest more than 2 to 3 hours per lecture notes. Also, please note that most of the questions that are up on Your lecture-based quizzes, you will not get direct answers from Google. You'll have to work hard because they have been derived from the lecture notes. So my colleague and I, my colleague in Nasinu campus, so myself and her, we basically go on creating lecture-based quizzes and assessments. We share the work and we mix up our portions or contributions and then come up with these assessments. So most of it is just from the lecture notes or application-based questions. So if you are thinking of doing a Google search, you'll have problems. Okay, so please try your best to get things done, dedicate time. You have 2 weeks to get everything done, more than enough time. Try to get everything done on time. The better you do it, the more time you'll get for your revision. Your final assessment, which will be online based at the moment. It's been confirmed it's online based, by the way. Okay, so I'm sure you'll be happy to hear this. So it's online based. It will be up on week 17. So week 17, whole of the week, you would be given complete 1 week to go and attempt your final assessment. No extensions apart from that week. Okay, so that's strictly on the final assessments. But that's still far. Please try to get your research project done and your lecture-based quiz done for next week and after next week. Okay, I'll get you up in next week's lecture class. Remember, this week, Friday, no tutorial class. So please do not keep on waiting for me on Zoom session. No tutorial class this week. Please dedicate your time towards your lecture-based quiz and also your research project. All right, everyone. See you in next week's lecture class, whereby I will be coming up with the revision questions. Till then, take care, stay safe. All the very best. Thank you.